The voicemail hit the shop phone at 7:12 a.m., before the neon "open" sign had warmed up, and before the street outside had fully decided on daylight. Ray didn't recognize the number. The message was short, flat, and careful, like someone reading from a line they'd used before. "Those suitcases aren't yours to keep." No name, no shouting. Just a pause at the end, long enough to feel like someone was still listening on the other side. Ray stood behind the counter with the phone in his hand and looked at his sister, Linda, who was already watching the front windows as if the glass could tell her what the street was thinking. Across the road, a sun-faded sedan sat too perfectly in a spot with no reason to park. Linda didn't say police. They didn't say anything at all. In their line of work, panic was expensive, sometimes deadly. Ray set the phone down, took a slow breath, and nodded toward the back room. "We do this the way we always do," he said. "Quiet, clean, on our terms." Linda pulled on nitrile gloves, like she was about to handle evidence, even though nobody had asked them to be anybody's hero. 24 hours earlier, the day had started like any other in their small Tucson pawn shop. Rolling up the shutters, switching on the cases, counting the till, trading half-jokes to keep the morning from feeling like survival. Then the stranger walked in with two identical hard-shell suitcases, one in each hand, like he'd rehearsed the weight. He didn't dress like a thug, didn't smell like a bar fight, didn't have the swagger of someone hunting for trouble. He had the tight look of a man who'd run out of time. "How much can you give me right now?" he said before the door had finished swinging shut. "I don't have all day." Ray didn't answer with a number. He answered with a question that had saved them more times than insurance ever did. "Where'd you get them?" The man, Max, according to the ID he slid across the counter, gave a story that sounded casual but landed wrong in the room. He did black jobs, he said. Hauling junk, helping people move, dumping trash for cash. He'd been cruising a wealthy neighborhood because remodels meant curbside giveaways, and he'd seen the suitcases sitting neat beside a pile of old shelving. He knocked. He asked around. Nobody claimed them. He came back later, still there. No cameras he could see. So he took them like abandoned property, opened them at home, and realized it wasn't just clothes. That's why he came here instead of selling online. "Safer," he said, and tried to smile like that wrapped it up. Linda didn't smile back. She moved slowly, narrating what she touched like the room itself was recording. Because sometimes the audio on their security system didn't catch everything, and because calm narration kept impulsive people from steering the moment. Inside the first case, folded hoodies, clean sneakers, a cosmetics bag, everything smelling like detergent instead of mildew. Too cared for to be trash. The name window on the luggage tag was a clean rectangle, cut out with scissors. The second case matched it like a twin. More neatly packed clothing, and on the handle, the faint ghost scrape where airline stickers had been peeled off hard. Max's phone rang on the counter. Once. Twice. He ignored it with a practiced flick of his eyes. The third time, Linda tapped the screen and put it on speaker without asking, her voice mild. "If it's about these, say it now." The line went silent. No greeting, no breathing. Then a click as the call died. Max swallowed and forced a shrug, but his hands had started to tremble in the way people can't negotiate away. Linda's gloved fingers slipped into an inner pocket and found a small zip bag, a thin gold chain, and a pair of stone-studded earrings. The kind of everyday jewelry someone mourns in a quiet, private way. Ray photographed it and set it in a tray marked personal. Not because they were saints, but because they'd learned the hard way what happens when you treat somebody's life like inventory. Then Linda reached deeper and froze. In the lining was a stacked handful of cardboard rectangles, cutouts from baggage ID tags. Clean, uniform, saved like trophies. Beneath them, a torn boarding pass with a barcode intact and the name ripped off on purpose. Linda looked up at Ray, and Ray felt the shop change temperature. 2 suitcases weren't a lucky find anymore. They were a pattern. And patterns meant someone, somewhere, still wanted control of what was missing. Ray didn't say the word stolen, but it hung in the air anyway. heavy as the desert heat that hadn't even arrived yet. He kept his face neutral, because the only thing more dangerous than a bad deal was letting the other person see you'd spotted the trap. "All right," he said, steady. "Here's how we handle luggage. We don't price it on the spot. We document first." Max's eyes sharpened, quick, hungry, irritated. "I told you I don't have time for paperwork." Linda's voice stayed calm, almost boring, which was exactly the point. Boring made people lower their guard. "Then you're in the wrong shop," she said, and slid his ID back just close enough that he had to reach for it. While he did, Ray moved the trays, jewelry separate, cut tag inserts separate, torn boarding pass separate, clean categories like a wall between them and whatever this really was. Max watched every movement like he was counting seconds, not items, and Ray noticed something else. When Max leaned forward, his jacket pulled tight across his shoulder, and for a flash, Ray saw the pale outline of an old airline baggage sticker scar on the suitcase handle, scraped off hard, not peeled gently. That wasn't found by the curb. That was removed in a hurry. They offered him a choice without sounding like they were offering anything at all. "We can hold them for evaluation," Ray said, "or you can take them and try another place." Max hesitated. Too long, too conflicted. The easy move would have been to grab the suitcases and disappear. Instead, he hovered, jaw working, like the thought of walking out with them scared him more than leaving without money. His phone buzzed again. He silenced it so fast, his thumb slipped. Linda caught the glance he threw toward the door, the reflex of someone expecting somebody to step in behind him. She stepped slightly to the side, not blocking, not trapping, just making it clear she'd seen it. "Nobody here is trying to hurt you," she said softly. "But we're not rushing into something that looks like a mess." Max swallowed, and for the first time, his voice lost that practiced edge. "Just don't put them online," he said. It came out like a request, but it sounded like a warning. Ray nodded as if that was a normal sentence people said every day. Inside, his instincts were tallying. 2 identical cases, tags cut out, boarding pass name ripped, trophy pile of tag inserts, and a man who wanted cash but flinched at visibility. This wasn't just property, it was a trail. Linda closed the suitcases with slow care and ran a numbered zip tie through each zipper pull, the kind they used when they held items for appraisal. She did it openly, in front of Max, so he couldn't later claim they'd swapped anything. Ray wrote the time in the ledger, wrote Max's name, wrote "consignment hold requested," and left out the words that would turn this into a confession. "You'll hear from us," Ray said. "Not today, when we're done." Max stared at the sealed zippers like they'd snapped shut on his last good option. Then he nodded once, too stiff, and walked out fast without looking at the displays, like he'd never intended to pawn anything at all. When the door shut, the shop stayed quiet for a long moment, the kind of quiet that makes you hear the buzzing lights. Linda exhaled through her nose. "He didn't want to leave with them," she said. Ray didn't answer right away. He was looking at the cutout rectangles stacked like playing cards, and he understood the shape of the next problem before it arrived. Whoever had been calling Max wasn't calling to negotiate. They were calling to control. And now the suitcases were behind Ray and Linda's counter, sealed and numbered, sitting in their shop like 2 ordinary objects that had never been ordinary at all. Across the street, the sun-faded sedan was still there. Engine off, windows up, parked like patients. By the 3rd day, Ray and Linda stopped pretending the suitcases were just merchandise and started treating them like a live wire they'd brought inside their own walls. They didn't call anyone in uniform, and they didn't post photos online because visibility was exactly what Max had begged them to avoid. Instead, they did what surviving pawn owners do when the rules on paper don't protect you from the real world. They built their own paper trail and their own control. Linda typed up a plain, non-descriptive notice, "Found luggage, proof required," and sent it quietly to 3 places that didn't invite chaos. A local airport lost and found email, a nearby bus depot office, and a private community board for the neighborhood where Max claimed he'd found the cases. No pictures, no brand names, no jewelry mentioned. If someone truly owned the bags, they'd know what was inside without being coached. Meanwhile, Ray moved the suitcases to the back cage and added a second lock. then wrote a simple rule on a sticky note and slapped it above the safe. Nothing leaves without a record. That wasn't morality. That was survival. The replies came back the way replies always do. Thin, slow, uncertain. Until one message landed in Linda's inbox that made her sit perfectly still. A retired flight attendant, now volunteering with a traveler assistance group, asked if the suitcases had a torn boarding stub with a missing name. Linda didn't answer that question directly. She asked for details only an owner would know. The brand of sneakers, the color of the cosmetics bag, the charm on the chain. The woman replied with specifics that matched too cleanly to ignore, including one detail Ray hadn't even noticed, a small stitched repair inside the lining. Linda's hands went cold, not from fear this time, but from the realization that the suitcases were exactly what they looked like. Pieces of someone's life, stripped of identity on purpose. They didn't solve the world, but they made one hard choice that made their shop feel like their shop again. The clearly personal items, the jewelry, a small envelope of keepsakes tucked into a pocket, would be set aside for a discreet return through that volunteer group with proof and signatures. Everything else that was generic and sellable, watches without engravings, electronics with wiped accounts, brand goods without names, books, would be handled as consignment inventory, the same as any other, because Ray and Linda weren't a courthouse. They were a pawn shop trying not to get crushed. When Max came back, he looked like a man who hadn't slept since he walked out the first time. Ray didn't threaten him. Linda didn't accuse him. They offered him something he clearly hadn't expected. A structured deal that protected them first. Consignment only. Delayed payouts. Item-by-item accounting. Video of every test, every weigh-in, every sealed package. Max tried to push for fast cash, but Ray's tone stayed polite and immovable. Fast is expensive, Ray said. If you want fast, you take pennies and walk. If you want real money, you let us do it our way. Max chose real money. Over the next few weeks, the shop ran like a machine. Linda photographed and listed with careful wording. Ray worked his network of local collectors, and they refused anything that felt like a trap. The big swing came from something nobody would have noticed at a glance. An older watch in the bottom of a toiletry kit. The kind of battered piece most people would toss in a junk drawer. Ray popped the case back under a loop and found a model marking collectors hunted for, the sort that doesn't look valuable until you know what you're looking at. That one sale alone changed the month. In the end, the suitcases didn't bring the 19 grand Ray had first guessed. They brought more, enough that Max walked with a payout that felt unreal to him, and enough that Ray and Linda had their best quarter in years without ever turning their shop into a circus. The last scene wasn't fireworks. It was quieter than that. Better in a way that only working people understand. One morning, Linda opened the ledger and saw a clean run of paid invoices. No chargebacks, no angry returns, no strangers parked across the street. Ray replaced the front sign that had been sun-bleached for a decade, then finally fixed the humming light in the display case because they could afford to do things right instead of merely enough. The shop looked the same to anyone driving by, an ordinary pawn place on an ordinary road. But inside, everything felt tighter, safer, earned. Ray and Linda didn't get rich overnight, and they didn't pretend they'd saved the world. They did something harder. They kept their heads, kept their business clean, and turned a dangerous situation into a win without letting it own them. In a city full of people chasing quick money, that little pawn shop stayed exactly what it was meant to be. Two stubborn owners behind a counter, making smart choices under pressure, and walking away still standing.